Hello, everyone. I'm Lori Rothman in tonight for Jerry Willis. Ahead this hour, another Republican debating. Will he or won't he? I'll ask Michigan Congressman McCotter if he's running for president. And Obama's health care reform is expected to blow out Medicaid and put cash-strapped states even deeper in the red. We'll have the latest. Plus, the White House wants to make sure you're driving a greener car, but are members of the administration following suit? All that and more right now on the Willis Report. We've already seen some heavy hitters say no to running for president, and a few who've said yes. But next week, we're expected to see even more names entering the fray, like Michelle Bachmann, Mitt Romney, and perhaps even my first guest tonight, Republican Congressman McCotter of Michigan. Welcome to you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, so with regard to the GOP presidential nomination, come June, playing field already looking pretty crowded. Any dark horse you see coming through?
Well, I think you see a lot of candidates that are out there, many of whom, especially in the age of the internet, are going to be able to get a message across, and as we saw with Herman Cain, make appearances at the debates that can come across, reach voters. It's a very chaotic time in the life of the country, and the country is looking for the type of individual who can make sense of it all and who can express that and articulate it and give us a sense that the future is going to be better, which it is.
You make the job sound a lot easier than we know it is. Getting a lot of buzz today, of course, Texas Rick Perry saying he seriously thinking about it. Thoughts on him as a potential?
Well, I think the world of Governor Perry, I think, is a great governor, and whether he decides to run or not is going to be up to him. He has yet to call me to seek my counsel.
All right. Within the last 24 hours, a lot of names have been bandied about. Bachmann, Palin, Romney, Santorum, all announced key dates that are getting a lot of attention. Any of those names not, you think, going to end up on the list?
Well, I don't know. I think that we've seen people who we expected to come forward, some people of very great character and ability like Governor Mitch Daniels or former Governor Huckabee that for whatever reason, personal or otherwise, decided not to. So I think it's going to be a decision that thankfully no one is taking lightly, and the decision they come to we have to respect and abide. So I don't want to speculate on what other people are going to do until they can, especially when they can actually come out and tell you.
Okay, so instead of taking it from the personality perspective, what keys, what events would a potential nominee look at right now as a determining factor for making this important decision, a very, very big decision?
I really believe that they look at the impact upon their family. And I once had the opportunity to speak to President George W. Bush about that, because he was uniquely situated, having been the son of a president in the modern age. I asked him, did you know what it was going to be like when you started to serve? What's it going to be like when you leave? And he said that it's very difficult on the family, and that is the most crucial decision you can make. And no one would know better than him because he served in both capacities, both as a son to a president, as a president and a father himself.
Want to switch gears and talk about some of the news of the day. We are learning here that the federal government is going to save something like $1.4 billion over the next couple of years just by not having to literally clean up spilled milk. So the president backing off some regulation to help small business. What do you think? Do you think this is just a first step, or do you think more needs to be done?
Well, I think it remains to be seen whether this is a purposeful initiative or whether this is a political talking point. Because, as you know, this is the administration that says that we have to get rid of unjustified rules, absurd and unnecessary paperwork that wastes time and money, and yet they want to impose cap and trade on the American economy. And yet they've imposed Obamacare on the American economy. So what we've seen out of this the same administration that has also turned around and spent $1 trillion in a stimulus that did nothing but put us further in debt, and at the same time after that announced that they have a debt reduction commission that they want to set up. Okay. This administration imposes things over and over again, both within a regulatory and within a spending framework, and then takes a little bit away to pretend that they're really trying to address the main problems, and they've yet to prove to me that they're serious about that.
All right, so when you hear from the White House regulatory chief, Cass Sunstein, saying the president believes we need to be very careful to make sure small business has more room to grow, you're not buying this move today with loosening up some of these regulations.
Well, it's like they drop an apple cart on you and take a few Golden Delicious off the top and expect you to feel better.
You know, even a lot of the business leaders themselves say it's not even these old regulations that they're worried about. I think you were just mentioning cap and trade and all of these new regulations that are, down the road. What can be done to increase the transparency for business, to give them less uncertainty so they can be confident making capital expenditures, be confident creating new jobs?
Well, I think as Ronald Reagan showed us, you really need to do fundamental things to make sure that the economy is sound so that the entrepreneurs and the industrious workers of the United States can take us back on the path to prosperity so that we can pursue our happiness. What you have to have is you have to have sound tax relief that affects the family table and the corporate boardroom so they can come together and create job expansion. You have to have fiscal integrity within government through the reductions of spending and living within your means. You have to have real regulatory reform that analyzes on every specific basis the cost-benefit analysis to the economy so that we don't lose jobs because of wasteful and unjustified rulemaking. And also we need a sound dollar. We do not need to continue to see the intervention of the Federal Reserve trying to put out currency in to stimulate the economy when the real problem is the absence of multipliers.
You know, those are a lot of tough issues you raise, especially by way of monetary policy and job creations, the weak dollar, elevated unemployment. I mean, serious problems as we enter into this era, more than likely, of increased austerity. I mean, what do you think, which budget plan, which budget deficit reduction plan are you leaning toward? I mean, are you in the Congressman Ryan camp here?
Well, I voted for the Ryan budget. We always knew it was a first step. What we're going from is an industrial economy into a highly globalized economy. We're also seeing, through the use of the communications revolution, people being able to make purchasing decisions within their home, right off the internet. They can buy a good or service around the world. What we have to do as a government is recognize that the industrial welfare state model has to be pared down. It's going to come down whether we like it or not because it's non-sustainable. But I don't believe that we're going to go into an era of austerity. I think we're going to move into an era of prosperity as the crushing weight of big government is removed from the very people who will help grow the economy and create jobs, and that's the American people.
And where will that innovation come, that source for new jobs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. I'm 45. You're far younger than I am. But when I was growing up, if you had a cell phone in your car, it was so big you had to license it as a concealed weapon. And now if you... And so now if you think about it, it's the amazing thing. You can pull a BlackBerry out of the palm of your hand and you can talk to any friend of yours around the world. You can order a good or service around the world. You as the consumer live in what is called a consumer-driven economy. So the United States, the most entrepreneurial, the most free country in the world, if you allow people to utilize those technologies to improve not only the ability of individuals to choose their goods or service, but the ability of entrepreneurs and workers to provide them, we're going to continue to see an American century of unprecedented prosperity. But the key factor is whether a government that is outdated in terms of its approach, its big government, highly centralized model, continues to stifle that decentralized creative approach.
And then there's the issue of taxes, right? So do you, some of these high-tech companies that are creating these smartphones and the BlackBerries, the iPads, whatever, Apple, any of these companies that are getting tax breaks for sending jobs overseas, I mean, do you think that that should be eliminated?
I think what we need to do is have tax relief. I think that if we continue to work on real regulatory reform, if we get our fiscal house in order, if we allow people to keep what they earn, if we allow the American people to grow this economy instead of watching the government try to lay the new pillars of an American economy, which has proven so unsuccessful, you're going to continue to see prosperity come. You will see growth. You will see revenues both to families, to businesses, and to the federal government through that expansion, as we've seen in the 80s and we saw in the 60s under President Kennedy. If we continue to look at it as a zero-sum game, we're not going to get anywhere, and we are going to see an age not only of austerity, but one of misery.
Leave it there. Congressman McCotter, many thanks for your time and insights today.